Hello, hello, beautiful souls. Welcome, and welcome to a Friday night tarot chat. And I wasn't on last night. It was just my life was too chaotic. So here I am tonight, and the topic I've chosen for tonight is 10 tarot decks of all time, and 10 decks that have really changed the world of tarot. And so I'm really looking forward to this. I have done a little bit of research. I'm sharing with you 10 or 11 decks that I have in my collection as well. We're going to chat about some that aren't in my collection, which I think are really deserving of being on this list. And so, yeah, so this is going to be really fun. So hello to Well-Tempered Claire. Thank you for being here. And Dion. This is actually quite a daunting task to take on. And I don't know if you have gone through your collections and thought about what would be the top 10 decks of all time and what are the criteria that you would use to place decks in that category. And for me, these are decks that have really, they've not only stood the test of time, but somehow, some way they have changed the tarot world and really made an impact on the tarot community, tarot readers in general. So I thought I would start with a few decks that are not in my collection, and that when I get to redoing this video, they may very well be in my collection. And so one of them, sadly, which is not in my collection, is the Spirit Keepers Tarot. And this is a preview of the 3rd edition. This is the colored edition that will be available for pre-order early next year. And I hummed and hawed a couple of times, and I was very, very interested in the sepia tones of the Vitruvian edition. And there is definitely something about hello to Havana, something about the depth and the wisdom and the layers that Benebell has put into this deck that are truly, truly incredible. And as I look at these few cards here from the new edition, I just know that this deck is going to become part of my collection. I can't imagine not having it here, and the level of detail. Sorry, this might make you a little dizzy. Let me zoom that out. What I wanted to show with you was the level of care that is going into this deck. So here is the Two of Swords, and there's discussion on this blog post about the choices and the thought that is going into. So in the 1st edition, the one that was black and white, and in the 2nd edition, the Vitruvian edition, there was nothing in the water here. I believe there was this symbol, the 3rd eye was there, but now we have the lighthouse of Alexandria in the background. And so she's trying to decide whether to center the woman on the bench or to have her off center. And I just really enjoy reading her blogs, and she's just so very, very clever. So I feel this is the Spirit Keepers Tarot. This is the 3rd edition that will be available for pre-order early next year. And this deck is not in my collection. And if it were in my collection, I have a feeling it would be on the top 10. And I just have a sense that when I redo this video in the not too distant future, it will be top 15 decks of all time. And this very likely would be one of them. And I have been, I don't know, there's just something, and her books as well too, right? Make this whole package just so very, very incredible. And you can look at some of the details here that go into the consideration of the cards. And I think this is one of the aspects of a deck that makes it, you know, a deck of all time. I don't know. So anyway, it's not in my collection. And I'm looking forward to having it there one day. So that's one of the ones that I wanted to share with you. And there are a couple others. Another deck creator whose decks I have 0 of in my collection is Robert M. Place. And perhaps you can let me know which decks of Robert M. Place that you have in your collection and which one, you know, would be deserving of a top 10. I have looked many times at the Alchemical Tarot, and there's a few of them that have really intrigued me. And so I understand why people have put Robert M. Place decks on in their top 10. Sorry, I'm getting another screen to share with you. Sometimes that is hard for me. Okay. This is this is also a fairly new deck, so is Spirit Keepers. This is a deck that I actually purchased the travel edition, but it's not made its way to me, and I've more recently purchased the full size. And again, a deck that I hummed and hawed about purchasing, and would I use it? But there is something incredible about this deck and the power, and to be really one of the first decks. I know there are others. There's quite a few of them, and I have started to build up my collection of melanated decks. And this one in particular, I think, has done something incredible. And I have read a little bit of the PDF guidebook, which I have because I've purchased the deck. And I'm really looking forward to working with this and reporting back to you. And I just have this feeling, this is Dust to Onyx, if you don't know what you're looking at. And I think this is one deck that just could not be mentioned tonight. It is truly an incredible deck. This Strength card is just really something that's, I wonder if these pop up if I touch them. No, it just says what they are. They don't go to a larger screen. So yeah. So Courtney, I just really think that you should be recognized more in the tarot community for your work. Courtney is the creator of that deck. So that is another one that I don't have that I think is definitely worthy of mentioning tonight. And then, this is so fun. Okay. So, you know, don't you just wish that, I don't know, but also if you got all these decks at the same time, you would never be able to digest them. And I think that's a really important part of that. So let's lose that one, and I've got 2 more before we get to my top 10, because I really wanted to mention these decks. So this one, this creator here, I think that James Reeds has done something. Oh, I can't do that. I think James Reeds has done something pretty special with these decks. And this one here, the Cosmo Visions Oracle, I have backed on Kickstarter, so you will see that one on my channel. But the fact that what James has done with these decks is really something incredible, something that no one else has done with the tarot. And to create those vast, you know, the spreads, what do you call it? I was going to call it a triptych, but it's not, because it's many, many cards. But the fact that the cards join together and create this scene, like, this is extraordinary and definitely worthy of mentioning. And maybe you can let me know if you have a preference to the light visions or the Prisma visions, because I think eventually down the road, I will be adding one of these two decks to my collection. And also let me know how they read. I mean, ultimately, a deck also is extraordinary because it reads well. And you get some pretty deep and profound readings from it. And so, so these ones that I've mentioned tonight that aren't in my collection, I really would appreciate your feedback on that. So that is the Spirit Keepers, Dust to Onyx, and Light Visions or Prisma Visions. And then the last one I want to bring to our discussion tonight is drum roll, not in my collection. Where is it? I have a lot of windows open here. Okay, so let's go here and then I can go to this website. So this is the Usui website. Can close that one. Close that one. Bear with me. I need to find the website. I've got it for you, but not for me. So the deck that I wanted to discuss on this website is the newest one. Oh, it's right here. There we go. This one, the Prima Materia. That is the book. We need to go to the deck. We need to go to the deck. This is something truly incredible. And I'm wondering if any of you have acquired this and have started working with it. This is one of those decks also that's going to take some time to get to know and to work with. This powerful message of unification that circles throughout the table of elements has inspired the Materia Prima, an expression of matter. This deck is an expression of the periodic table concentrated in 84 cards. Each chosen element is given its part in the cosmic drama of life, conjuring matter in the soulful, playful language of the imagination. I am really intrigued. So yeah, let me know if any of you have picked up this deck. And as you know, their cardstock, the care and quality that goes into Well-Tempered Claire Andrew uses, he wants the Brute Tarot, the Brew Tarot or the Brute Tarot. And Barely Balanced Tarot, hello. Barely Balanced Tarot says, I have the Pagan and the Playing card and the Brute. So you have 3 of them. Okay. Moon Chariot would like the Supra. Yes, the Supra looks absolutely amazing. And I do have the Pagan Otherworlds. Hello to Joseph, IT guy, and anybody else that hasn't come in. So for those of you that are just joining us, I have gone through 4 decks that aren't in my collection that I think are definitely worthy of conversation to be in the top 10 or top 15 decks of all time. And I was just wondering if they're in your collection, if you're using them, and if you agree with me or not. So yeah. So the first one of those that will come to me is Dust to Onyx. I will have that very soon. And so I would really like a recommendation on the Cosmo. No, I'm getting the Cosmo Oracle. So I have backed that on Kickstarter, whether the Prisma or the Light Visions. I wouldn't purchase both, but I would definitely like to get one perhaps. So your thoughts on that are greatly appreciated. Joseph has been shopping and purchased the Full Arcos Tarot, which is one we've been talking about a lot lately. I believe I have 11 on the table here. And I don't think there is one that I can't mention. And for very different reasons, these are decks that have stood the test of time and have definitely affected deeply the reading of tarot and made very significant contributions to the tarot world. So let's get on with these 11 decks. Barely Balanced would never be able to choose between the two. Hello to Michelle. Okay, so this, so in the and I don't know if I'll be able to do this in a like 11, 10, 9, 8. I don't know if I'll be able to do that. And I don't know if I can pick a number one, but I am going to start kind of down the 11, 10, 9. I can do that. And so in my hand is the Shadowscapes Tarot. This is undoubtedly an extraordinary deck. The art of Stephanie Puy-Moon-Law, I think, really paved the way for something really special. And when I was thinking of all of the Fae decks in my collection and how they have affected me and how I make choices when to use them, you know, in readings, whether I can, what kind of readings I can draw from them. You know, there's certain reasons why I use some of them, but there's nothing like this deck. There's nothing like this deck at all. And I, particularly the Suit of Fire and the Suit of Pentacles, are just extraordinary in this deck. And the way that the artist, Stephanie Puy-Moon-Law, has been able to integrate the elements into this beautiful Fae-ish world is just really, really something. And I know that we are all waiting for the release of the 25th anniversary oversized edition. I mean, can you imagine if Llewellyn actually did that? That would be so extraordinary. I have no problem reading this deck. I feel that the story, it just weaves the story so beautifully. And so I did not pull out some of my favorite cards in this deck. Here, this one, this Queen of Wands playing the harp, and the connection to the trees is particularly powerful. And Dion, and there's quite a few of you actually that do not like this deck. So Dion and Well-Tempered Claire, My Voice Tarot. And so what really got me to fall in love with this deck was the time that I took with it and to look at the details in the drawings. And this is not unlike a scene in the Spirit Keepers Tarot. If we can look to the Celtic knot in the background on the Emperor, I don't know, this piano card really gets me as well too. So I think this is you know, this is down there. This is the 11th deck that I'm showing you today. The first deck that I'm showing you down at number 11. But I couldn't not mention this deck because it's been a very, yeah. So of all of the kind of otherworldly decks, I think this one has done something really special for the tarot world. Something about the stained glass, the cracks in the stained glass. Any deck that has a spider card that really, I mean, spiders and dragons. Put a dragon in your deck and put a spider web in your deck and I'll buy your deck. And this one is just so very, very magical. Yeah. So that's my number 11. And there were probably 4 or 5 decks that could have gone in that position. But I really feel that that one is a deck that needed to be mentioned tonight. And yeah, this is it's a really good point, because sometimes the busy artwork can be overwhelming. It can be overwhelming, and it's hard to make connections between the cards. But I find that because there are, like the foxes in the suit of fire, they flow so beautifully together. And so if you see the foxes move from one card to another, it's a great way to tell a story. And there's lots of different figures and characters that do that. The fish do that. There's different ones. And so if you can, like a 3 card, I don't think I would ever do more than a 3 card with that deck, but it's one that has definitely affected me deeply as a reader. So in the number 10 position is the Margarete Petersen Tarot. This is a deck that took me, I'm going to remove the banner. This is a deck that took me some time. This is definitely an intuitive deck. This is a deck that is not for somebody who is rushing through a reading. This is a deck to evoke emotion. It is not for beginner readers. And I would say that this is a deck that it's just so emotional for me. It's so emotional. And the poetry, I'll read you if you don't have this deck, I'll read you 1 or 2 of the poems from the Major Arcana, because they are absolutely stunning. And the thing about these paintings is that they are not, it's not a curated deck. This is original artwork. And there are layers upon layers within these paintings. And sometimes in this deck, there will be, I'll tell you one thing I don't like about this deck in just a moment. I just pulled out a card that reminded me of that. You know, when I look at this deck, sometimes I will see a layer that I didn't see in the past. And that particular layer will shine through. And perhaps on this given day, I'm looking to the inside of the 2 circles. And perhaps on another day, I'm looking to the outside. And so I feel, and I have talked about this deck on my channel before. I talked about it in doing very personal readings with the Rumi Oracle. I mean, this Father of Cups is stunning. And so all of the cards that I have shown you are of a particular style. And then there are a few cards that are a very different style. So for example, and this is the trimmed version of the deck, by the way. So here's the Moon card. Here is the Mediatrix. And that some of the names have been changed in this deck. And the High Priestess is another example of that, as is the Death card, which is extraordinary. So in this deck, there is more than one style of Margaret Petersen's art. And I'll read you the poem for that one. It's really beautiful. And so that is one thing that I won't say I don't like, but I prefer it if an artist is doing a deck. And I know that even over the course of several years in painting a deck, artists change, right? They change their style. It changes. But the change is quite extraordinary between the style of some of these paintings and other paintings. And I see that some of you have used it as an oracle deck. So I'm going to read you the poem for death, just in case any of you don't have this deck. So this is one of the unique aspects is the poetry for the majors anyway. Entering the formless, changing of clothes, flaming like a sunset, travel on the path to nowhere. Wisdom of the serpent, the thread cut, no longer separated, we expand. Stepping out of one's self, death, old crone, with your flaming cloak, you take what needs to be transformed. And some of these poems I have marked just, as favorites and so forth. But I think this is a very unique and powerful deck. And yeah, and so I trimmed mine and edged it in kind of a rusty color to match the back. That Shadowscapes I showed you was also trimmed on 3 sides. So there we are. Next. So that would be 11, 10, 9. I believe that now it's really hard to know where to go from here. And like I said, these are not in any necessarily any particular order, because they're all definitely worthy of mentioning. I think in 2012, when Kim Kranz self-published The Wild Unknown, she also added something extraordinary to the world of tarot. And I'm sure every single one of you know this deck, and people have a love-hate relationship with this deck. I'm hoping I actually have it on my table. Yes, I do. And for those of you that follow my channel, you will know that I feel quite strongly about this deck. Its power of the elements, the different layers that can be read in this deck. And it is definitely not an easy deck to read. And if you feel the connection to the elements, to the line art, if you have a little bit of background information in chakras, it does help, because Kim is a yogi and she brings a lot of yogic teachings through the medicine of these cards, as well as animal medicine of different kinds. Spider card, Sadhana must like the deck. So this is one that kind of has to be there, because it really offered something different to the world of tarot. And when I read with this deck, I feel like I'm on a different wavelength. This is so different than reading with the RWS. This deck takes me, like, I just drop right in. Like, out of my, there's no intellectual left brain in reading this deck for me. And so the words flow through quite easily. And one of the things, and I think I shared this with you, was I was pulling out, can you see on this particular, like this 3 of Wands reminds me of so many things, but and behind the 3 branches, the lines are horizontal. And so one of the things I was curious about in this deck was, what is the effect of the horizontal line versus the vertical line? And so I pulled out a bunch of cards that had horizontal lines. Amber's not happy. She's moaning in the background. So for example, here, this extraordinary 6 of Cups has horizontal lines behind it, the upper tree. And so what is the effect of the horizontal lines versus the vertical lines? And I can't even find one with vertical lines right now. The 5 of Swords has vertical lines. And so I sat and I stared at the cards. Okay, all of these have vertical lines, all of these have horizontal lines. How does that make me feel? And that's incredible, you know, for a deck to really make me dive like that and feel like that. And so this is one of the reasons that this deck is really intriguing. I love the sparseness of color. Color is used very, very intentionally in this deck. Very intentionally. Like the tip of the Father of Pentacles is orange, right? The tip of the beak of the Father of Cups is orange, right? So it's the sparseness of color is super intentional, and yeah, it's an amazing deck. This is one of the first decks Barely Balanced got when, I don't know, I was going to say she, but I don't even know if he or she got back into tarot. It feels like the Pine Tree Forest and Scrub Oak Lagoons where we have in Northwest, you're from Florida, Northwest Florida. Yeah. And My Voice Tarot has a similar one of my daughters has just taken Amber away because she was whining. Oh, here she is. Hello, Amber. They want to see you. Come here. Come here. Come see mommy. Come see mommy. There's Amber. Yeah, she'll start banging the table. So, oh, I know. But you have to lie down. Sorry, baby. She was playing with her friends today at doggy daycare. She goes to a doggy daycare called No Problems. And they are amazing. And it's always the same dogs when she goes, and she has so much fun. It's a huge, like, so much land, and they're so well taken care of. And one of the owners is a vet tech. And so I know that if anything ever happens, Amber is well looked after. And she's so good about who plays with whom and how much time dogs are out. And she's a great dog parent. So I'm really lucky to have that available. What is this? What is shining? Oh, is that my water? No. What is that? I don't know. I don't know what this is in the corner. What is that? There's something weird in the corner and I don't know what it is. Okay. It's here. It's here. It's here. Oh, is it my box? That's so weird. I don't know what's shining at you. Okay. All right. So let's go on. Let's go on. Maybe it's it's my computer. There we go. It's my computer. There we are. Hello, Paula. So now it's gone. That's good. Let us go on because, so the next thing I want to say is that there are certain publishers that do an extraordinary job. And one of them is Il Menengello. And I don't know how many of you have Il Menengello decks. I have two. And this one is in the show tonight because it's just extraordinary. And I shared this deck when I was talking about what it is I love about Tarot de Marseille. And I think of all of my Tarot de Marseille decks, this is the one that has that effect of transporting you to another time, another place. And it's just, and the sound of the paper, you know, it's a thick cardstock, that absorbent kind of watercolor paper. And it's a little different than the Tarot de Marseille, but it's still in that vein of Tarot de Marseille. I love the shape of the cards. I love it's just so unique and so beautiful. And so if you ever have an opportunity to purchase an Il Menengello deck and you don't have one, you will not, I mean, they're not all the same. They're not all on the same paper. And I was trying to find out if this one is by, the last name is Dono Frio, I believe. If she, I think it's Frida, had done other artwork. And because I was really interested to learn about her as an artist, but I wasn't able to find anything. And so this is in my top 10 for sure of tarot decks of all time. And I feel like this deck is, I don't know, like I feel like it's such a privilege to own a deck like this. And just to give you an idea, I don't want to show you a deck that I haven't. Oh, I can show you with the Wild Unknown. So that's the size of the cards. And it is I'll show you the whole pile. Like it's a thick pile. It's thick cardstock. Like it's a chunky deck. It's a chunky monkey. Chunky monkey. For those of you that are do you get chunky monkey in Europe? Where's my camera? There's my camera. This is the Wild Unknown. This is La Corte de Tarot. So yeah, it's a thick deck. But because it's narrow, you can shuffle it. And I love it so much. And I would never corner around it. It's just perfect the way it is. So, yeah. The other Il Menengello deck I have is the Soprafino. And it's also extraordinary, but in a different way. The corners don't hurt. No. Havana Star likes that deck as well, too. All right. So now it gets really, really, really tricky. And there's going to be no surprise for a lot of the decks that I'm going to share with you today, because they've been around and everybody uses them and everybody talks about them. And so I'm going to go to the Robin Wood. And as many of you know, this was the first deck that I used. I used this deck for about 3 years. Only this deck for about 3 years, maybe longer, actually. And the reason that I went from the RWS to this deck was the artwork just resonated with me so much more. And I loved the pagan aspect, the Wiccan aspect that was brought into the deck. And I think Robin did something very great. I'm so glad the Page of Swords is sitting right here. I love this Page of Swords and the ribbons and the color. I love the butterflies in the suit of swords. RZ has 3 Il Menengellos. Oh my goodness. And oh, here's the King of Swords, like his body language. This deck is so easy to read. I always confuse the title for the Myth of Robin Wood. Oh, Robin Hood. And there is an extra book that goes with this that is so worth it. That's the Ace of Pentacles. Yeah, these are some of my favorite court cards in this suit of swords. That cape that's on that queen, and the fact, you know, that it's not that what Robin has done with her court cards is made them neither light nor dark. She's really done a good job, and not in all of the cards, of course, in embodying the frequency of, yeah, neither shadow nor light. This is the High Priestess. This is actually, I really like this card. This is the Three of Pentacles. So yeah, so this deck, I think, is really earned its place, and I want to share a story. This is just amazing. So one of the students in my current read with me met Robin at a conference, and he received his deck from he bought it directly from Robin Wood. And when he was studying the Robin Wood, he studied it with two other friends, and they each purchased a copy of the Robin Wood. And they studied it for a lunar cycle together. I don't know how often they met. And then at the end of their time together, they put all three decks onto the table and they mixed them all up. And then they each took a deck. So the decks were infused with all of their energies. And I think that is amazing. I want to do that with a group of people. Can you imagine how, I don't know, just it would feel really, really good. Especially if you've been studying it together and it was a deck that you all loved and you were with people that you really connected with. So I'm going to definitely do that with some people. Yeah. Probably sometime down the road. Wow, that's amazing collection on RZ or RZ. You have 4. You have the Naibi di Giovanni Vachetti, as well as the Tarocco Neoclassico. The other one that I'm thinking of getting is the huge one. There's one, I don't know if it's this big, but there is a really, really large one. So we were talking about Usui earlier, and I was talking about the Prima Materia, which I think is extraordinary and going to be on be in my collection at some point, and definitely a deck that's worthy of conversation. And I can't leave Pagan Otherworlds off this list, not only for its quality. And I recently acquired this deck. It was a gift. It was a gift sent to me from a student, and I had no idea about the depth and power and how well this deck was going to read. And the illustrations in the minors they leap off the page. And the way that the pentacles are arranged, the way that the leaves, the trees, the roots of the trees, the things that are in the background appear, it also creates a painting as well too, when you have a large-ish spread, because the theme of the cards is all very similar. And so you get a beautiful portrait when you have mini cards on the table. And I'm so grateful for this gift. And yeah, so the Usui company really, really extraordinary decks. Yeah. And this is so much more than an RWS clone. There is something about the unique artwork, the change of scenery that's in the background of the cards that tells such a beautiful story. I don't know if you were here on the live readings. The other day I used this deck and we had this card come up. And in the reading, the Strength card also came up, which also has a bear in it. And it just clarified so easily what we were to focus on. And I find that this deck does that. And so this deck definitely has a place in the top 10. I don't think I would ever not include this in a top 10 tarot decks of all time. Yeah, and these backs are, and the way they look when you spread them out. And the other thing I realized the other day when I was shuffling this deck is that this is made from some kind of uber cardstock. If I actually got a kitchen food scale and I weighed these cards, I think they would be heavier. Maybe I'm crazy, I don't know. I think they would be, they're significantly heavier. And so I think it has to do with the core in the center of the cards. So yeah. Drum roll. I should have got a drum. Why is this deck here? I guess that's a dumb question. I mean, this deck is here because not only does it have one of the very best guidebooks. Oh, I haven't even broken this one open. Oh, that's too bad. I should. This one I haven't even broken open. I repurchased this deck because, oh well, we'll break it open. Virgin cards. I repurchased this deck because, as you know, I trimmed it. And for those of you that see me read with it frequently, and there was something about the borders and something about the intention of the borders. And so what I've considered doing is perhaps making a square card, a larger square card, and not trimming off the second border, because there is actually an intention with these borders. And while it's extremely beautiful trimmed, and the color does pop when it's trimmed, it's really interesting. And I don't know if this is a different intensity of color or not, because the other deck that I have is the small version. So you can purchase this deck with a large guidebook or with a little white book. And I'm wondering if the intensity of color is different. And I know other people have shown different, very different versions of this deck. Perhaps I should go get it. That's really, well, I'm not going to do it tonight, but to look at it side by side. The Queen of, look at this Ace of Cups. This is another extremely spiritual deck. And the fact that, so Druid craft is a weaving of witchcraft and Druid practices. And it has this tremendous connection to the earth. And that's one of the reasons that it feels very, very magical. I don't think there's a card in this deck I don't like. You know, we have Excalibur on the Ace of Swords. So this is a deck that is just so very, very powerful. I love the Queen of Swords in this deck too. And like I was talking about with the Robin Wood, that Queen of Swords in a lot of decks, you know, is painted and stereotyped as the single woman, the bitter woman, and so forth. And I love it when a deck creator is able to portray, you know, a good variety, like yes, she's cold. Yes, she's cold, but she's also determined and wise and know what she wants. I find this is a great deck to work with if you're challenged with the court cards. So yeah, so this is definitely in my top 10. All right, Joe. Ooh, I can't get tired of the back. So the pagan, no, where was Joe's comment? I lost Joe's comment. Okay, so Joe's going to watch it back. Good night, Joe. And yeah, so what the Moon Chariot is saying here, I think is really, really important. And there's a couple of decks that I've been working with lately. One is the Crystal Tarot, and the other is, I've gone back to the Chamonette Tarot, and I was telling you how I'm retrimming it and working with it. And they're both little tiny decks, and they're both on my table, and I'm really taking my time. And I have gone through periods where I've purchased a whole bunch of decks at the same time, and then you don't get a chance to get to know them. So yeah. Anybody counting what number we're at? I have no idea what number we're at, but I know I had 11 on the table. So I didn't order it yet. I am, Well-Tempered Claire asked if I ordered the Primordial yet. I have a few things in my inbox on Amazon. And yeah, I'm just kind of waiting waiting to hit pay. I haven't ordered it yet. The other thing is, how many decks, or do you have any decks where you have a backup copy or you have another copy? Because I think that is a sign that this is a deck of all time. And this deck I'm about to show you, I do have another copy. This is the Marielle Tarot. And again, an extraordinary deck that really brought something deep and profound to the world of tarot. And I don't think that our community would be the same without this deck. And the boldness of Rider-Waite, the boldness, the thoroughness, the the research that went into putting this together is incredible, and I appreciate it so much. I do not have a second edition. I have 2 copies of the first edition. And this is just one of those decks that takes you deep and far. You can learn so much. And I'm so very grateful for having this deck available. And not only do you have the opportunity to study the myths and the legends and all that Rider-Waite has put into the guidebook, but there's some quite amazing things that you can read intuitively from this deck as well too. Again, not a beginner's deck, but a deck that is very deep and very profound. And we would be quite a different community without this deck. So I had to include this one tonight. And again, another deck that I've put lots of love into and went to great. This one actually, this one has the gold on the gilding. And then when I trimmed it, I took off the gold. And so I edged the two sides that I trimmed in gold again. So it's very unique. It has commercial gilding on two sides and Sadhana's gilding on the other two sides. And I guess that's what, you know, I just had this random thought. What if you did a 3-card with one Margaret Peterson and 2 cards from the Marielle? And I was looking at the 2 of discs when I thought about that. And I thought, whoa, wouldn't that be extraordinary? Let's just see what comes up here. Let's put 2 cards from the Margaret Peterson with the 2 of discs. What do we need to know? How can we expand on the information of the 2 of discs? Intuitively. Let's keep it. Wow. Yeah, this is, you know, and the other thing I like too is that the Marielle is tall and thin and the Margaret Peterson is a different shape and it looks like a really nice, like I love the way it looks together. Maybe I'll do a reading for myself tonight. So there we are. I got some pretty sweet decks on my table tonight, and they're not, many of them are not out all the time. So what's left? 1, 2, 3. Right? 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, so what's left? I'm going to tell you what's left. What's left is a Tarot de Marseille, because I don't really consider the Corte de Tarot a straight up Tarot de Marseille. And the Smith-Waite deck, rider-waite Smith, and the Thoth. So those are the last 3. And I don't think you sorry, I just started getting really hot. I'm going to take off my songs. I don't think you can have a top 10 of all time and not include these decks. And whether they're in the middle or at the bottom or at the top, I really think they need to be there. This one is the Tarot de Marseille Jean Daudel by Flournoy. This is a large deck for Tarot de Marseille. And I actually really like this one. You know, if you're studying Tarot de Marseille and you're working with the basic 5 colors, and this one has been really good for me for study of Tarot de Marseille. I love his website too. What's included there. And it's so nice his wife is keeping up the shop. You know, and some of these images are so bizarre, but it's just so classic. And where would we be in the tarot world without the Tarot de Marseille? And so I had to pick one for my collection. And this is the one that I chose to share with you tonight. So yeah, and the things that I love the little things about it, like One of the things I learned from this particular, from Flournoy's book or website, I can't remember which, was, you know, the little details like that number 4 that is in front of the eyes of the emperor isn't actually a number 4. It's the mark of the, you see, in these decks, there's the engraver, and then there's the engraver, and then there is the printer. The engraver, right? There's the engraver, and then there's the printer. And sometimes it's the same person, and sometimes it's not the same person. So in the case of the Flournoy decks, it's the same person. The engraver is the printer. But in a lot of decks, so this one is based on Dodal. So that number 4 is a symbol of either the printer or the engraver. And I can't remember if Dodal was the printer or the engraver, but there's so much history. And I think this is part of why we love tarot so much, is because we have this huge history of tarot. And this deck feels, I like it. It's big, right? It's chunky. So I like this one. I have a couple of smaller ones too, and I love some of the contemporary ones. They're amazing. And you've seen some of them on my channel. Like, I started a series, which I will continue this winter. I will go back to my Tarot de Marseille series this winter for sure, and share that with you. The Thoth. My large green deck is at the store, and so I just have the mini here. Again, without Lady Frida's artwork, and there are a few Thoth clones that are extraordinary as well too, and I have a couple of them in my collection. But I don't think we cannot bring this deck into this kind of a discussion of top tarot decks of all time. There's just so much that we learned from this deck. There's so much that has been incorporated in more contemporary decks. And if you look at some of the contemporary decks, such as well, there's a few of them that I love dearly, like the New Vision, not New Vision, sorry, the Vision's Quest, the Native American deck. Isn't that extraordinary? I love that. As well as the New Era Elements, the Urban Tarot. You know, they wouldn't have been able to create those decks if it weren't for this deck. And so this deck is always going to be in a top 10, top 15 decks of all time. And for those of you that have never worked with the Thoth, you know, it's a project. It's a project for a summer. It's a project for a year. It's a project for a few years. And depending on how much time you want to put into it is how much you're going to get out of it. But I think it's a worthwhile journey for all of us who read the tarot to kind of get a little bit more into the alchemical symbols, to learn a little bit more about the astrological connections, to learn a little bit more about the history of the secret societies that were so influential in the creation of these decks. I think it's amazing. It's amazing what we have here, and that we have all of these decks that were inspired by some of these older decks. I missed something here. Oh, Paper Moon is here. So let's just see. What's going on? Ginny is teasing me about hot flashes. Taroki. What did I say? La Corte de Taroki? Did I say it funny? La Corte de Taroki? Did I call it Tarochi? Taroki? Sorry. Yes, I know. It's Taroki. La Corte de Taroki. Dono Frio. Yeah, that was the name of the artist that I was looking at. Okay, so the last deck tonight, of course, is the RWS. And I was just checking in with, so no, I'm past the hot flashes. And that is, thank God, over in my life. That's so funny. Your mom keeps calling during lives. Well, just bless, you know, you're lucky that you still have your mother. That's wonderful. The greenie. Yeah, I think the greenie is really worthwhile because then you get the large, right? You get the large version of the cars. Okay, so I did mention Robert M. Place at the beginning of the, oh, maybe you're watching it back as you type the comment. Okay, excellent. Paula said, I had Vision Quest Tarot, went missing from a box that disappeared from storage. Yeah, it's really, really, oh, Tarot Chi, not Tarot Ki. Okay, oh, I said Tarot Chi. It's Tarot Ki. Yes. Okay. How in the world? Okay, here's the last question tonight. How in the world do you choose which version of the Smith-Waite Tarot that is your favorite? How? I ask you, how? So do you go with old plaid backs? Do you go with a recolorized version that you love the colors? I don't know, like I have probably 12, maybe 12 different versions of this deck. And I have the Centennial in my basket all the time, but I don't know that it's my favorite. I do actually love the Universal. I love the recoloring of the Universal. There's something, and maybe it reminds me a little bit of the Robin Wood. Maybe that's why. I have a funny feeling that's why I like it. It's a lot more similar to the, because it's quite different than, let's just see if I can find a, so in the Justice card, I wonder if I can find the Justice card quickly. These are the minis too. That's the mini in the plaid backs, and then that's the recolored one. It's actually not that different. Maybe I picked a bad example, but I do like the recoloring in the Universal. And I pulled out a whole bunch of them tonight as I was trying to decide which one I wanted to show. And do you know what? I decided I don't like any of the borderless ones. That this classic deck, I really feel it needs to have a border. It's not the Smith-Waite Tarot without a border. And I have pretty much all of the borderless versions. And just tonight, as I was doing that, I realized I don't really like the borderless ones. So I did a video comparing the borderless versions, and I'm not crazy about any of them. So yeah. So for now, top 10 tarot of all time. To be revised in the not too distant future. Let's see which Dirty Pam I know is a favorite, as well as the Blushing Fool is a favorite for a lot of people. Radiant Wise for the colors, Pam's Vintage because it looks old. Well-Tempered Claire loves the Centennial and the Radiant. Michelle has a blue box. And Jen's doesn't like the borderless either. Let's see what else, what other people like for their favorites. My Boys Tarot likes the borders. RZ switches. RZ, are you in RZ or in RZ? What country are you in? I'm curious. In Canada, we say RZ. But if you're in RZ, I'll call you an RZ. Variety is great, and I switched them up. But I always go back to Universal as a favorite. It always feels lighter somehow. Yeah, there's something about its color palette, isn't it? Yes, yes. And if you look at the borders, so a perfect one, a perfect example is the Magician card. I can't stand those borderless cards and what they have done to the artwork. It's like, and I had quite a little chat with some very know-it-all people in the comments underneath that video. I have more comments in that video than a lot of my videos. It's really extraordinary. People always watch that video where I compare the different borderless versions. Because there's discussions about Pam A and Pam B and Pam C and Pam D, and this is from Pam A and this is from Pam B and this is from Pam C and this is from Pam D. And it's like, no, just look. It's photoshopped. So in one of the borderless versions, you have the archway on the top, and then you have just yellow around the outside of the archway. Like it's just been filled in, and it's quite extensive, and it looks ridiculous. You know, anyway, the argument, it wasn't an argument, but it was like, well, no, it comes from the Pam D, and the Pam D that's the way the Pam D is. Well, I looked at the Pam D. There's actually some really good websites where you can see the Pam A, B, C, D side by side. There's some really resourceful people out there in our community. So we are really lucky. It's easy to kind of dig up that information. All right, so one more time, I will just have a quick look at the chat, and then I will say goodbye to all you lovely souls and wish you a wonderful, wonderful weekend. Wouldn't that be fun, Jan? Wouldn't that be fun if we could go and just visit each other and look at each other's collections and things like that? That'd be so much fun. I have a dream of purchasing a motorhome, some kind of a small, cute little motorhome, and painting it so it's obvious that I'm a tarot reader. So I don't know what I would paint on the sides. And just going around North America, all over North America, and just stopping wherever I want to stop in different towns where I know people are from the tarot community. And I think it'd be so much fun. So much fun. I'd love to do that. Yeah, or have a fifth wheel where you could have like an actual tarot room in one of the rooms in your travel, your mobile home. That'd be so much fun. So Barely Balanced Tarot, thank you very much. Tarot Caravan, that is the idea. Paper Moon, you are in Washington. Yeah, if they ever open the border, well, apparently things have escalated again. So nothing happening soon. What town are you in, Paper Moon? What town? Yeah, Washington is just like right there. So it's a very, very easy drive. I remember in the old days, I used to drive to Seattle all the time, but it's just not fun anymore going through Everett, and it gets really busy and backlogged. But I haven't driven to the States. The border has been closed since March, like a long time. So I'm anxiously waiting to go, as you know, to my PO box. Port Townsend. Oh, wow. That's a lovely, lovely town. I will definitely come and visit you. Oh, we have more van life and people here. Yeah. Oh, wouldn't that be fun? It'd be so fun. And I can imagine, do you remember those old curtains from the 60s or 70s? They're beaded curtains, and they're kind of heavy. They're kind of made of, I don't know, were they made of plastic or glass? Some of them were actually made of glass, I think. But I can imagine, like, you know, beaded curtains and hippy dippy colors and crystal balls and smoke, and yeah, something like that. Something like out of the Wizard of Oz, you know, that caravan in the Wizard of Oz in the beginning scene where that guy is reading Dorothy's fortune. Yeah. Maybe by the time my hair is all turned gray, I'll have my caravan and I'll be driving around North America. Maybe even go to Mexico and see my friends in Mexico. Go to Sayulita and hang out on the beach with my tarot cards. And of course, my caravan will have to have custom built-in shelves for all of the decks and so forth, so they stay perfectly organized while I'm driving all over the continent. This makes me so happy. And Paula's door is open in New Zealand, so anybody who wants to go visit Paula there. Oh, you know what? Me too, Jen. I can just imagine us having coffee. I mean, you're probably talking to Paula, but oh my God, like I can imagine having coffee with all of you. How much fun would we have if we actually got together and met after all these tarot chats with all of you? It would be so amazing. I know that Lisa Papez of Supportive Tarot was planning for all of us to meet in September, like a couple months ago. And we were going to go to a crystal, what do you call it? Like a big trade show in Denver. But of course that didn't happen because the borders are closed and because everything is closed. But yeah, anyway. So thanks for hanging out with me tonight. Have a lovely, lovely weekend. Stay away from the Black Friday sales and enjoy the decks that you already have. And be good to yourself, be kind to one another, and I will see you all very, very soon. Namaste.